All right, a crossover event that would have some of our newspaper ancestors rolling over in their crusty graves. The great Chad Finn of the Boston Globe is here. Chad, have we gone soft like the NBA here? You know, the way that like people media just want to play with and podcast with their friends as opposed to the 1980s when this never would have happened, this podcast?
Yeah, completely soft for sure. But you know what it is? I blame it on like sports radio and TV where it's all intertwined. You turn on, I see you on NBC Sports Boston, you turn on NBC Sports Boston and it's an EEI host with a 98.5, the Sports Hub host. So, and you know, we're all kind of in the same boat these days anyway. So might as well talk to your friends, right?
Yeah, fair enough. And honestly, you know, look, I think that's another thing newspaper guys do is blame the TV and radio folks for asking the dumb questions or getting the interviews. So like we're still aligned there in an old sense and an old spirit. You and I are going to talk some Patriots here today, and then we're going to get into Tom Brady. When I've teased now a couple episodes ago, the Tom Brady drinking game, as we all eagerly await Super Bowl 50. I don't even know what it is. Chiefs Eagles is coming up. It's going to be a great game on Sunday, and Tom is going to broadcast this. But I want to do the best thing we can do here in the media, which is, of course, under promise and over deliver. Let's go back to May 25th, 2022. Last time you were on this podcast, there were some comments left at a time where I didn't know what I was doing hosting, recording here. Let's just revisit how that one went. And we were talking about how the Patriots could improve in 2022, doing a big solid to them, layout, areas, optimism. And then we did some media stuff. Here were some of the comments, just a sampling. Quote, what was the point of this? Quote, there's nothing more New England sports than half a podcast of New England sports writers patting New England sports writers on the back. This podcast sucked. Great job, gents. You think we can do better this time around?
Those are my fans, not yours.
No. That was a haphazard operation. I was lucky just to get a signal and to record. I think we'll be much better, and I'm looking forward because, look, everyone could do the podcast now. The 2025 Patriots could get better, which is just, I don't know, play football as opposed to last year. But let's look at the offseason, because I think also before we get granular in the Super Bowl or the teams or any broadcasting stuff, I think it's important just to get some perspective. And we look at this offseason and everyone talks about the cap space and the coaching staff has been finalized and the draft will come up later. How patient should they be? This is a rebuild. We know it's a rebuild, but the more hope, grows, it could affect our expectations. Do you want this add as much talent as soon as possible, Cooper Kupp, Myles Garrett, or just understand this is where you are, this takes 2 to 3 years and follow the traditional rebuild path?
Yeah, more the latter there. I think you can be selective about it. I can see a world where they trade for Cooper Kupp if the price is okay and they feel like it fits financially, which it should. And, they get a sense of maybe some receivers that others anticipate coming here or hope come here won't. T. Higgins or somebody like that. Everything you read from Bengals players and personnel is that they absolutely love the guy and really, really want him to stay there. And it's hard to leave Joe Burrow. So we'll see how that shakes out. But I think that makes sense. I can't see them, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I can't see them giving up what they would need to give up to get Myles Garrett. Yeah, ideally, you'd love to have him. He's one of the best defensive players in the NFL. He's a one-man wrecking ball, but this is a team that needs so much. The most important thing for them is to get the draft right and to get a string of drafts right and get that influx of talent on the roster, because we saw it. We saw every game all year. They were devoid at a lot of positions, and you look at them doing that assessment now. I think there are players that are going to be much better for Mike Vrabel than they were for Gerard Mayo. I think some of those players that regressed under Mayo that had success for Bill Belichick will be better with Vrabel. But you just look at Drake May, you look at Christian Gonzalez, and you wonder where else the core players are. And so you got to get those guys in on rookie contracts and just hit the draft right. And if they were a team that was thought they had a real shot at the playoffs next year, maybe winning a round or two and getting Myles Garrett would take them further. It would make a lot of sense, but just the condition they're in right now, they've just got to build up and build up and build up. And that's free agency too. That's you're not going to be like the offseason of 2020, 2021, where you sign 20 free agents and it seemed like every single one of them helped them in 21, including Mike Vrabel, was probably arguably the best free agent signing in Patriots history. but you need to hit those mid-level guys too. You can't allot all of that for a Myles Garrett or somebody else, even with the money that they have to spend. They're just too far away.
Arguably best in Patriots history. I never considered Mike Vrabel in that category, which of course, just like I did trade value earlier this week, and you're taking into consideration age and the contract and the position they play. Mike Vrabel, if you were going to make that case, which I don't know if you are, and I'll give you time in a second to do it or not, you would say, okay, you got 8 great years, leader, played a bunch of positions, then came back and saved you as a head coach, which he's probably not coming back to unless he had played in the first place and established that relationship with the Crafts, who say, fine, here are the keys, just kind of come back. Rodney Harrison was always atop this list, in my opinion, without thinking about it for a while. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is that, are you going to make the case now, Mike Vrabel, best free agent signing ever, considered what's happened, especially now lately?
In context, I'd put him in the conversation. I think I'd go Rodney, but they spent money on Rodney and Roosevelt Colvin that same offseason. Got hurt, wasn't the same player, but good free agent signing still, good Patriot. But that offseason in after the 2020 season, they brought in so many guys that ended up being really helpful here. I think one of the most underrated Patriots of all time is Roman Pfeiffer, who is just solid. He was just good at everything. And you don't see guys like that on the roster right now. There aren't a lot of those guys where you can just say, that's a really dependable guy. And that was with Vrabel, he was a backup a little with the Steelers. They bring him in, and he ends up being a core guy for 8 years. He ends up being a culture setter. Guy made a heck of a tight end in the playoffs, touchdown scoring tight end. And you could argue that he helped get the dynasty started by hitting Kurt Warner, who threw it right to Ty Law, who went right down the sideline. And then all of a sudden you're saying, wait, do the Patriots have a chance against the Rams here? So I would put Vrabel, based on expectations, based on what they paid him that first contract, and based on what he ultimately ended up being, as in the conversation for best in franchise history.
All right. We would have loved to have pushed you over the top there, gotten the headline, the YouTube clip, and put it all over social. Greatest free agent signing ever in the conversation. Congrats. It's like the extension of getting MVP votes, right? Like, oh, Tatum's in the conversation. He's not going to win MVP. Like, it's a good place to be, but that's how that hit my ear.
I'd put it more like maybe a little higher ballot, maybe like I don't know who would finish second or third this year, but I'd put Vrabel second or third. I think Shea's going to win the NBA MVP, maybe Jokic, because his numbers are crazy. So whoever's behind those two guys, that's who Vrabel is.
All right. To answer my own question, I think you can have a framework, right, of what we want to do, where we think we're going to go. And obviously you want to map out how we get there. What I would say is you want to take that 2 to 3 year timeline, but not use it as an excuse to overlook any potential opportunities. Like, I've been pro trade for Myles Garrett, because I think when you take a look at that 2 to 3 year timeline, when can we be competitive? How can we do this? He threads every single needle. Like, A is just a generational pass rusher. Okay. Physical freak, former number 1 overall pick, 15 sacks per season each of the last 4 years. He's only 29. Vrabel knows him. He can fit in that 2 to 3 year window. Why I've been more reluctant on the Cooper Kupp stuff is I go, okay, he'll probably have a decent season coming up, but then he's 33.
Trending downward, yeah.
Right. Like, he doesn't fit the window here. So I just don't all teams make calls. Some of them leak out, and then it gets to be this aggregated story bigger than it was. I want the Patriots to turn over every single stone and look at this with the urgency of getting better, but within a 2 to 3 year time frame, which isn't always, stockpile draft picks and have the rookies all get better at the same time. You need adults in the room, but be patient with the understanding that doesn't mean we need to ignore things that might fall into our lap. Yeah,
I mean, the one case, I think that if I were making the case to bring Garrett here, not knowing what the cost is. I mean, you got to figure it's multiple first round picks. And do you think they're going to be a better team next year, where that next year's first rounder is lower down? But if I were making that case, I would say it's not the most enviable year to be in the number 4 spot in the draft, depending on where those quarterbacks shake out. Whether Shedeur Sanders ends up being somebody that goes in that top 4 or falls a little bit lower. I think Kim Ward's probably going to be in there, but you're looking at a situation where maybe you don't get Abdul Carter, you don't get Travis Hunter, and then suddenly you're saying, oh, Will Campbell could be a left tackle a really good left tackle if his arms are long enough. So if you're looking at this draft and looking at number 4 pick and saying that in a really good year, it's the guy you're taking there would be the 10th pick, then maybe you can rationalize it. Rationalize is too strong of a word because it's Myles Garrett. So if you do trade for him, right, the downside is the worst case scenario is, we gave up a bunch of draft picks to get one of the best defensive players in the NFL.
Yeah, a guy who you also don't have to worry about off the field. Like he's healthy. So that's on the field, but he's only missed 2 games in the last 4 years. Vrabel knows.
No more helmet swinging. He's done with that.
Right. Yeah, for sure. What's a successful offseason? To me, this is short. Like the best offensive tackles, and I'm talking 2 or 3, and the best receiver right now is not on the roster. If that changes by May, to me, like to put it in simplest terms, you need better depth and this and that, and better defensive players, yada yada. But like those positions have been black holes for so long. I look at it that way. What would be a successful offseason for the Patriots here, February 6th, as we record? Yeah,
repairing the offensive line would be at the top of the list, to the point where you're going into the season being confident about it, which nobody was last year for good reason, as it turned out. I'm really interested to see if any of the guys they have on the roster that they've drafted last year, the last couple of years, that Vrabel and the coaching staff believes in. Do they like Leighton Robinson? Do they like Wallace? Do they think Jake Andrews is going to be a guy who's a part of this thing down the road? Does David Andrews still have enough left to be a starting center? I have much more faith in their assessments in what they have on the line now than I did with the staff that was here before. But they obviously need multiple additions too. You cannot have Darian Lowe playing meaningful snaps next year. They're who probably don't belong in the NFL. So
probably yes,
yeah,
can confirm.
Yeah, so remedy that and go into the season feeling good about that, and that counts as major progress to me. Is if you can see clear repair marks on that offensive line before the season begins.
Yeah. All right, let's go for some potential feel good to some anxiety, because I think a lot of folks in our position here, and I've done this on radio and talked about it on TV. The starting point, the premise is, Patriots fans are getting very anxious about the Chiefs' success and they're mad. And I don't know how we measure that. Like, I can check my mentions. I can listen to people who call into the radio. I don't think people who respond to me on Twitter or call in 2 to 6, whatever, maybe a representative of the whole fan base, but that's what we've got to go with, is this kind of sample. Do you think that folks are anxious about, if the Chiefs win Sunday, they've three-peated, something never done in the Super Bowl era of NFL history, something the Patriots never did, and are encroaching on the Patriots' territory? And are you personally a little, please don't, when you look ahead to this game?
I think Patriots fans are probably anxious about it, but they've got a card that they can pull, I think, which is a Brady beat Mahomes to get to the Patriots Super Bowl victory in 2018 over the Rams. And
6 is more than 4. Even if you get to 4, congrats, they're still 2 years away.
When it gets when there's anxiety, when Patriots fans start counting the 7th that Brady won with the Buccaneers as one in his favor.
Do you think his boat says 7 rings like Bills does? Or like
yeah,
down in Miami.
Yeah. But yeah, I think actively, probably the majority are rooting against the Chiefs this week. It's the Eagles aren't exactly the most lovable fan base either, and they stuck a knife in your side in the Super Bowl. I guess it was 7 seasons ago, 2017 season. So there's no one to root for here for a Patriots fan. But if the Chiefs do win, you look at it and say, too bad Patriots lost to Jake Plummer and the Broncos in 2005 and didn't get that 3rd in a row. But you also say, well, let's see Mahomes do this for nearly 20 years like Tom Brady did. Let's see them win 6. It's hard to win 1. They'll have a nice little stack of them, but I think we forget how hard it is just to win 1 Super Bowl. And at some point, the Chiefs are going to realize that too.
Yeah, look, the Eagles spoiled what would have been a three-peat for the Patriots, 2016, 2017, 2018. Who's to say they can't do it again? And I think the analysis of, oh, can Mahomes, the greatest quarterback in the league, even though he didn't play like it this year, overcome the most talented team in the league, which was the kind of trite analysis 2 years ago when these two teams met, it diminishes how the Eagles are built, how I think they can win in multiple ways now. And I'm just super excited about this game. I've talked about this before in this podcast.
Okay, so I know most of you still remember. It's only been about 5 years. The Patriots playing playoff football, the best of the best going head-to-head. That's what January and February is all about. Now, I don't know when the Patriots will be back, but I know if you want to make lifetime memories, whether it's the NFL playoffs or later on this year, the NBA playoffs or the NHL playoffs, or you want to even go to a March Madness game, there's only one place to go. It's Game Time, the best secondary ticket marketplace you will find for one simple reason. They have a lowest price guarantee. And I use this, have you heard me tell you before, to make lifetime memories with my wife out in London. Went to the game with one of my best friends. Granted, he was a Jags fan, nothing you could do about that. But the point is, I went to Game Time because they gave me that lowest price guarantee. Plus, as I was picking out tickets for them, they gave me a seat view right there, what it was like to be in Wembley Stadium. And you could do this even if you want to go to the Super Bowl. Find that exact seat. What's your view? Compare it to another one, but only at Game Time, where you get not only the seat view and the lowest price guarantee, but Game Time picks, where they give you all the best deals right up front, all in pricing. You don't even have to go searching for all these different deals. It's just the best of the best right there. You can find your tickets and go to the Super Bowl or any other event in less than 60 seconds. So what are you waiting for? Download the Game Time app today. Create an account. Use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase in these lifetime memories. Terms do apply. Again, just create an account. Use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, the best tickets, the lowest price guaranteed tickets to any game, concert, show, playoff, or regular season. Guaranteed. What time is it? Game Time.
But the other part, when you talk about Brady versus Mahomes, that I think is being overlooked, because this is a storyline that has to keep coming up. How much longer is Andy Reid going to coach? Because his replacement matters a whole heck of a lot. And you could give like the examples. Oh, Barry Switzer still won, when he took over for Jimmy Johnson with the Cowboys, and Aikman got another ring, and George Seifert after Bill Walsh left in the Niners. But after that, went downhill.
Yeah.
I don't know how much longer Reid is going to coach. But as it stands right now, again, let's say that they win. Who is closer to catching who? Is it Andy Reid looking up at Bill Belichick, being considered the greatest coach ever? Or is it Mahomes with 4 rings, the greatest start to a quarterback career ever, looking up at Brady, still under 30, with 4? Who's closer to catching the greatest Patriot coach of all time?
I think Reid is, in terms of total wins, when you add the playoffs and how close he is in the regular season too. I think that's probably going to happen unless he stuns us and retires in the next 2 seasons. But like I said before with the quarterback, Mahomes is ahead of Brady's pace, but that pace is so hard to keep. Nobody is going to sustain what the Patriots sustained, I think, again, in NFL history. Even with the 9-year gap where they didn't win a Super Bowl, they were contending for them. And then you have the bookends of the dynasty where they won 3 on each end of it with the same quarterback and the same coach. That's not going to be repeated. The real question is, how long does this last for Mahomes when, if Andy Reid's no longer the coach? I don't know if there's a successor even that they've thought about. When Travis Kelce, who knows, maybe this is his last game. We'll see. When he's gone and they run into what the Patriots ran into after 20 years, where the roster just wasn't replenished through the draft anymore. So I feel like the shelf life for this Chiefs team is going to be shorter at the dynasty level than it was for the Patriots, who sustained it in a way that nobody will ever do again.
So I think for me, I see it the other way in terms of Mahomes. Again, the consideration. This was like the public perception, not actually in terms of numbers, though obviously that drives a lot of the argument. I think people already want to make the case now, unfoundedly, in my opinion, that Mahomes is as good as Brady with 3 rings versus 7. And you can do different measurements, obviously, and I think we should more than Super Bowls because wins are not a quarterback stat. But the point is, he's done things and played the game in a way that Brady never did. It doesn't make him greater all time, but what it does is if you get another ring and you say, he escapes better, creates better, is playing in this era and has done all these things, you could make a case like I think some folks do for LeBron over MJ, if he gets at least in the neighborhood with the championships, to say, he's as the kid would say, go, which to me does not make any sense, but we're not going to debate the kids in this podcast because you always lose against the kids whenever you want to argue against them. But it's the perception part where he started was so high and he's only continued to ascend. Whereas Andy Reid, I think we still picture that guy who just can never get over the hump of Philadelphia. And he's been great. He's an all-time coach. But there's just a gap. I don't know if he ever gets to close with Belichick, who, stunk in Cleveland, but immediately erased that stink and deodorized what happened with the Browns by winning a Super Bowl in his second season in New England, not to mention having the mastermind reputation when he was with the Giants.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I think Belichick's the better coach. Just in terms of, counting stats or whatever you want to call them, I think Reid probably catches them. Andrew, the really thing that has kind of caught me by surprise with the Chiefs and watching this happen again with them and the phase that they're in, where you watch the way they won this year, at least until their receiver core got healthy and added some acquisitions and was much better at the end of the year than it was at the start of the year. But it felt like watching Mahomes this year was like watching early Brady in a way, where it was just not caretaker or game manager or anything like that, but just super efficient and taking what's there and not being the freewheeling Mahomes that came into the league and, lit everything up right away. I'm really interested to see where his career goes from here in terms of what kind of quarterback he is 5 years from now. But watching this Chiefs team just makes me appreciate the way they win, makes me appreciate more the way the Patriots won and the reminders of that. And I know people think Kansas City gets all the calls. I think it does feel that way sometimes. There's certainly situations where you feel like they got a break. Maybe they didn't deserve a spot like against Buffalo, but that stuff happens with the Patriots when you're there all the time. And just watching them make the right play over and over, rise in the biggest moment over and over. It's really reminiscent of what the Patriots did at their best in that way. And so you're watching a team challenge them and trying to come for their crown, and it has this nice ancillary effect of just refreshing your memories about how great it was to watch the team that you cared about or covered do that over and over again.
This podcast is already so soaked, syrupy nostalgia all over the place. I love it so much. Roman Piper references. And I'm with you, though, because you think about the way that they won, and everyone's like, the Chiefs continue to find a new way to win. They can bank on their defense in a way that the early 2000s Patriots could bank on their defense. Okay, it's always there. Then it's a matter of what edges are you being provided offensively and through special teams. They blocked a kick to preserve a win. They had a game-winning field goal go off the upright and fall in the way that you could have watched that game and gone, that wasn't the Chargers, that was the Jets who were across from Brady, and you just kind of get that bounce because as the Chiefs own the Chargers, the Patriots own the Jets. And the other thing I would say is the problem solving has really impressed me with Kansas City, right? The ability to win in different ways and not just the luck of a field goal or a field goal block, but in the way that he, for the first half of the season, was lowest in the league in average depth of target. This is a guy whose career took off throwing bombs to Tyreek Hill, making a comeback in the Super Bowl, just chucking it from whatever angle he wanted and finding Hill downfield. Now he's dinking, dunking, and just winning by a little bit because we can do this at the end. We've done it in the end. And that kind of confidence and that kind of inevitability, which has finally consumed everyone, I think picking this game even, says, well, they're going to win in the end. Same way we felt 20 years ago.
Yeah. I wonder if that's the case with every team that gets to that level where not just one Super Bowl, but like the early 90s Cowboys or those great Niners teams who have pretty sustained run with two quarterbacks where they feel that same way in those situations where, all right, nothing's gone right today, but this is where we go out and win it. And then they do. And maybe that's a characteristic of all great teams, but just watching it in the current context over this century, essentially, there's just so much familiarity with what the Chiefs are doing and what the Patriots did for so long.
Yeah, and they're well-rounded. Those first really Chiefs teams were great, but their defense stunk. And so if it wasn't Mahomes powering with this all-time offense, they didn't really have a plan B. Now, the way they play, you got a plan B, C, D, E, and F. All right, one quick thing on the field, then we'll get to Brady. What's the most interesting thing to you about this game? Just anything around or involving the Super Bowl and what we could see on Sunday?
The Saquon effect, because I can't tell you how many times I've gone back, when he goes out and runs for 3 touchdowns, breaks 168 yards in a playoff game or whatever. My immediate reaction is to go to YouTube and watch the Hard Knocks with the Giants when they're rationalizing to John Mara about why they're not going to let him go and or why they're going to let him go and don't want to pay him, and their director of pro scouting trying to subtly say maybe we're making a mistake here, and just seeing how it all played out, and Saquon ending up in the absolute best situation for him. I feel like there's a culmination coming Sunday where, he just rips through that Chiefs defense, a possible culmination coming Sunday, and rips through that Chiefs defense and puts the ultimate exclamation mark on a season that began with one of the worst teams in the NFL letting him go to a rival.
Right. Yeah, I love Saquon. I've made
Awesome.
I've not been quiet about that. Covered him for a bit in college. He's a legitimately good dude in addition to a freak on the field. And I think, as I've said before, this is the first good offensive line he's played with since at least high school. And I can't even speak to those days at Whitehall, Pennsylvania, but I know they stunk at Penn State. I know they stunk with the Giants. And granted, this is not just a good offensive line. It's a great one. But that's the kind of player at this stage that can kind of cement a legacy immediately. Like, he might be tracking for the Hall of Fame, might not be. You win a Super Bowl, he's gone. So yes, I'm interested in seeing what Saquon does and what he looks like. I'm also curious, Chad, if there's any kind of creative desperation on either side. Like, we've seen this before, fake punts, onside kicks probably off the table. But if the Eagles get down, do they feel the need to do this as a team that very often has just gotten a lead and just run you over? Or do the Chiefs come in saying, this is a close enough and talent gap? I think they're 1.5 point favorites or something. Do we have something up our sleeve for you? Because we know Andy Reid is plenty daring. Spags is plenty daring. Sirianni just embodies Philadelphia in a way I don't think any coach has for a city in a really long, long time. An F-it attitude who's fighting with his own fans. Does he go, yeah, we're going to pull one over on you? Like, where does that come in? I just hope we get a little wrinkle here and there, because I know that the standard regular plays, given how good these teams are and how talented Saquon and Holmes and Kelsey and yada, yada, are going to be great on their own. The standard stuff. Is there something beyond that? Like, I hope so.
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't think they called a lot of that stuff this year, even though the perception is that both teams do it a lot. It seems like if they have wrinkles to use, that they've hidden them pretty well, at least in terms of the really tricky stuff. I don't know. Do they throw a touchdown pass in tribute to Nick Foles to Jalen Hurts? Or
there you go.
Sirianni seems like the kind of guy who would have been climbing a greased pole in downtown Philly after they beat the Patriots. So I would not put it past him to pay homage to the last Eagles Super Bowl win in some sort of way, with a little bit of trickeration like they used in Doug Peterson used in that game. But I've had a hard time getting a read on this game, whether it's going to be high scoring or not, because a lot of respect for both defenses, but you look at Kansas City's offense kind of coming to life here later in the season, and all the things that the Eagles can do with just an incredibly talented roster. But the questions about what Hurts is going to be able to do as a passer against Steve Spagnuolo, I have a tough time getting a read on like what the over-under would be on this game should be. So for a game that's essentially a rematch from a few years ago, there's a lot of mystery to it, and I think that's kind of a pleasant surprise, because when these two teams got here, it was like, this again. And as we built up to it, it really feels like it could be a classic.
I think so. I think people are sick of hearing me say that on here, but I will say this: that image you put in my head of Nick Sirianni atop the greased light pole, he's not only up there and bare-chested and swinging something around over his head, he's looking at the other guys at the light poles around him, being like, I will stay up here longer than you. I will outlast you. I will not be the first one down. The cops may or may not have to drag him down to go back and coach his own football team.
That may happen anyway.
yeah, if they win, look out New Orleans. God, I was longing for Bills Mafia to get the chance to descend on Bourbon Street. And you know what? Honestly, drunk Philly fans, in a very different way from the beloved, very loving, universally cared for fan base in Buffalo, but could do similar damage. All right. Tom Brady, real quick, before we get to Tom, a word from America's #1 daily fantasy sports app, PrizePicks, who we spent a lot of time in the last episode telling you how to look at this game, what they're going to do for you. And we're getting down to the nitty gritty. If you have not signed up for PrizePicks, you are essentially giving up on a $50 bonus, because right now you download the PrizePicks app, you use code CLNS. You play a $5 lineup. This is how easy it is, with 2 picks, one of which they're going to give to you. Patrick Mahomes, more than half a passing yard. Boom, lock it in. My pick would be Saquon Barkley, more than half a receiving or rushing touchdown, also available to you in PrizePicks. That's a 2-player lineup, $5 down. PrizePicks, win or lose, gives you a $50 bonus, but only if right now you download the PrizePicks app, use code CLNS for that $50 bonus. You can use Venmo or MasterCard, do whatever you want. Venmo's my thing, doesn't have to be yours. Use code CLNS for that $50 bonus. Terms do apply after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. So, off air, you were telling me you think this is going to be it for Tom Brady. Why?
Yes. I've gone out on a limb of that in print a couple of times. Well, there's just a lot of little fires with this. I can't remember which player it was who visited the Raiders, may have signed with the Raiders, but he said Tom Brady was the one doing everything there in terms of talking to the players, negotiation, whatever. So he's more deeply involved than he's letting on. And he did a media conference call Wednesday with sports media writers, maybe like 10 or 12 of us on the call. Did it for 45 minutes, and he really downplayed what his role with the Raiders is. Mark Davis's team, limited partnership. He reiterated again, which he said a couple of times in the last month, that he plans to do this for 9 more years and maybe even more than that. That's his standard line, the broadcasting gig. Nobody believes that. Nobody believes he's doing it for 10 years. So why is he telling us he's doing it for 10 years? There's the conflict of interest stuff. There's the fact that the Chiefs are all right with him talking to their personnel this week, which kind of threw me off a little bit. Why is Clark Hunt letting him do that? I think he thinks that he's just going to be gone to the Raiders and not a broadcaster anymore after this. I don't think it's gone that well for him. You know, it's been ups and downs, and we can get into that. But I think he thought it was going to be, he's put the work in for sure, but I think he thought it was going to go a little bit smoother than it did. And he didn't have this opportunity to be involved with the team, which clearly I think is far more fulfilling to him than being in a broadcast booth. So he is really hammering that he's going to be back. Fox is hammering that he's going to be back. They sent around these golden microphones with Tom Brady's voice if you press a button about how excited he is to be calling the Super Bowl, which is a little.
Okay, wait, Chad. We need to hit pause for the YouTube audience. Please bring that back. And can you hit play? You literally have, it looks like I don't know, they should give those out at the Emmys or something, but only for radio broadcasters. And
I hope Emmys are better quality.
Yeah, well, that's the shiniest gold, fake or real, that I've ever seen. As you hold this up, it's maybe like 4 or 5 inches tall on top of a black base, like you would have most awards. So there's a button you press.
It goes forever. You want to hear it? Well, 30 seconds probably.
Yeah, I mean, we got to have, now I can say Tom Brady's been on pass interference.
Member of the Fox NFL broadcast team. I couldn't be more excited to join Kevin, Aaron, and Tom to call my first Super Bowl from the Superdome. Come to think of it, the big game and I have some pretty good memories together down in New Orleans. Our team has been hard at work all season long, and it seems like just yesterday I picked up a mic for my first game. But now, the Super Bowl is upon us, and our Fox crew is ready. See you February 9th. Let's go.
How about that?
Go. I hope you hold on to that 40 years from now, if any of us are still here, and eBay is still in use. So you get some good run out of that, because I don't know what purpose that serves to send out a recording of Tom Brady and this fake cold mic.
I'll tell you, Tom's really excited about this. Okay. And we're going to hold him hostage and make him tape this audio, and then he's going to go work with Pete Carroll for the next few years. That's my hunch in theory. And I
like it.
Also, Don Yee, his agent, has gone out of his way to say, "Oh, Tom's going to do this forever," and it just makes me think how over the top they've been in talking about how much Brady loves this, when the evidence in front of our eyes every Sunday is that it hasn't been that great. It's been fine. He's been good at times, but he's not Tony Romo. He's not ever going to be Chris Collinsworth or Troy Aikman, who had a fantastic year as a broadcaster because he just stopped giving a damn about anything and just said what he thought. I don't think Tom can ever get to that level, and I don't think he wants to. I think he wants to go run the Las Vegas Raiders and put together a football team, because it's the closest thing he's ever going to come to fulfilling the great joy of his life, which was playing quarterback. So, we'll see. He's got $375 million reasons to stay with Fox, but I see a pathway out of this, and if he's in a booth next September, I'll admit I'm wrong, but let's wait and see.
So I'm with you, and I think if anything, this is a case where you can try to convince yourself of something and really truly want to believe it, but then you get exposed to whether it's your old life or old habits or people you used to be with or an old job, and there is that kind of joy that you're talking about that returns to you. And in this case, Brady's case, without being in the room, obviously, that would be the competitive nature of winning a coaching search, getting your guys, being part of a team, hell, rooting out loud for the people that you want to win, which in this case, obviously, is no longer the Patriots. It's not even the Bucks. It is the Raiders. And once you get that kind of partial attitude back in your life, as opposed to the, sometimes pseudo objectivity and the staleness and the, of the being in the broadcast booth, you're like, why would I ever want to go back? I've had these thoughts walking through tailgates to Patriots games, being like, you know what, today would be fun to have a beer in my hand and be in section 210, row 36 CF, as opposed to the press box, which sounds insane to people listening and watching this. But I'm telling you, there's something to be said about the community and the emotion of it, which is just not, it doesn't reach you in that space. And I'm convinced. I wasn't there because not of what he said. I just think he wants to get better at this. But I think there's a clear ceiling, whether it was just speaking on behalf of the Patriots and the way Bill Belichick wanted him for years and years and years, which I didn't think it would be successful. You were just geared to speak in this very boring, cliche way to protect the team. In this case, your team is the audience, and it just hasn't connected in this kind of way. So the question of, did he meet your expectations or underwhelm? It sounds like, did he underwhelm you, or did he meet lower expectations that you had, as I did in my case?
I think he was about what I expected, which was very guarded and cliche-ridden early, but you could tell he was putting the work in. He had tried to be good at it, and he took that year off, that gap year, to study up on all these different broadcasters, which I think was part of the issue. He had too many voices in his ear, too many people he was trying to take something from, and so he just couldn't be himself. That's come out a little bit more recently. I thought the Bills-Rams game was that week 14, that fantastic game. He was into that game, and he was telling you what he saw. He one of the things I really liked, I've written this, but I'll reiterate it, was he lit up AJ Epinesa because the Rams were just attacking him. And that's the kind of stuff he wasn't really saying, but you almost felt like he was talking about it from what he saw as the Patriots quarterback, with that kind of ruthlessness. You know what I mean? Like, all right, this is the guy we're going after. He can't stop the run. He told us that. And those aren't the kind of things that he's been that great on informing us about through the season. But, just going to run the Raiders. The thing we know about Tom Brady, throws himself full throttle into everything. It's one of the things we know about him. One of the reasons he became the greatest quarterback in NFL history was because of that commitment. Even when nobody believed in him, he's got two things on his plate now that demand full commitment: being the number one broadcaster in the number one booth for Fox, and then his role with the Raiders, which he's trying to downplay and clearly is bigger than he's letting on. And Tom Brady is not somebody who's going to split his time. Just from what we know about him, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't check out. It doesn't register. And so you think about, what's more appealing to him. Of course, that job with the Raiders is going to be more appealing. The wild card that I just have to keep coming back to, the barrier, is the salary he's getting from Fox. But I feel like there's ways around that they can work out. He does appearances for Fox, does some glad handing, something like that, and makes a little bit less money. But we'll see.
Well, we know he took less money to stick around here, and that was for the sake of the team. If he makes the same comparison, granted, it's a very loose analogy that needs all of the scotch tape that you have to take less money to still be part of the Raiders. He just might do it. Did you make anything of the fact that, and I'm not saying this to pit Brady versus Belichick. Clearly, they're on good terms now. I've done podcasts together, hung out, said nice things, and I don't think it's all just for appearances. But the coach he picked in a coaching search he led him into the warm, smiley bosom of Pete Carroll, the opposite of the coach he knew for 20 years here in New England. Like, that's the guy that Brady hired. Is it anti-Bill? Anything there, or is it just comedic? Obviously, it's making me laugh.
Yeah, I wonder if Marshawn Lynch's name came up in the interview. You know what? Probably not Malcolm Butler, but Marshawn Lynch maybe might have been a good icebreaker with Pete, or maybe not a good icebreaker. But I think it's just a respect thing that he has a lot of respect for Pete Carroll's accomplishments, football knowledge, way he's still at 73 years old is able to communicate with younger players. I know he kind of got tired there in Seattle, and the breakup seemed pretty inevitable by the end, not unlike how it was here with Bill. But I think it's just a guy he's respected over 20 years as an NFL player. And those Seahawks teams gave Brady some hard times. You remember Richard Sherman getting in his face back before we really knew who Richard Sherman was. And so I think it stems from that respect and interested in hiring on the market.
Yeah, and I think, too, the advice he got from Belichick, if we're being completely fair here, not just for giggles, would have led him to Pete Carroll anyway. Someone who has a vision, program, experience, whatever that philosophy is, doesn't have to be the same as Brady experienced in New England. Obviously, he won under a different style of coaching in Tampa Bay, and that went just fine. Pete knows what he wants. He knows how to get there, what it looks like, and their hirings of Chip Kelly on offense and Patrick Graham on defense. Like, this is a Raiders franchise that if they're allowed to work and coach as they are, I think has got a higher level of competency ever since they moved to Vegas, maybe even before. Like, that's a well-run franchise. Brady's a part of it, but I think Pete I've come around. I don't think it's a good long-term hire, but they'll be at a higher level with the coaches they have in place now than I would have expected or even thought a couple of weeks ago. All right,
it's
so Brady.
Stable.
Yeah, imagine that.
Not the Raiders.
Yeah. The thing about Brady we also know is he plays his best when his best was needed, typically a Super Bowl. So even if I agree with you that I think Brady has underwhelmed or just not been to the caliber of your number one color commentator on these Fox teams, I think, Chad, we get the best out of him. And it's not only the experience that he's had now with a full season under his belt, because I don't think he was good in that NFC Championship game, but I think it's his ability now to finally check in and visit with teams like the Chiefs, which he could not do. And also the fact that he might know, as you just said, hey, this is my last game. What do I have to lose if I get a little aggressive in my assessment or negative or this and that? I think we get the best out of Brady. What do you think we get from him on Sunday?
I do too. I think there might be some nerves early. Maybe the first time Tom Brady was ever nervous in a Super Bowl. But he's been. He mentioned yesterday. I mentioned Wednesday that everybody's been reaching out to him saying, "Go have a great game, Tom." Chris Collinsworth, Al Michaels, Jim Nantz. All these people saying, "Yeah, it's a Super Bowl. Go have fun." And that's great, but it's probably helping him think about the magnitude of how many people are going to be listening to him. Watching him's fine. He's used to that, but listening to his words with some of the blowback he's gotten this year, I think he might be hesitant early. And then as the game gets going and anticipate a great game, he'll get into that. Over the course of the season, I think he did get better as he began to recognize what people really wanted, which was, his expertise on having been through all of this and having been in every single situation, basically, that any quarterback could ever face, and telling us what he would do in this situation or being anecdotal about it and saying, I was in a situation, this is how this worked out. And I think he got a better read on that as the season went on. I also think he was overproduced early, that too many people were in his ear telling him who he had to be. And, Tom Brady, he's going to take all that information and run it through his brain. And I don't know I think too much stuck in his head, and it didn't allow him to be at ease in the broadcast booth as much as probably he wanted. But I think he's much better at the end of the game than he is at the beginning come Sunday, just like I would say he was for the most part during the course of the season.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I am curious too whether he acknowledges what that energy is going to be like and anticipates pregame first quarter. Okay, I don't want to be too over the top, much like when he came back and his only game as a Buccaneer in Foxborough in that first half. Everything was a little bit too high. It's a little bit too hard. And whether the Patriots anticipated that or not, that's Brady, a little bit too much juice. And I've heard players and coaches in Super Bowls who participated, competed, say they did that same thing, but then we're almost like comatose. And someone had to be like, hey, it's the Super Bowl. Let's go, to steal a phrase. So I don't know exactly what to expect, but I'm with you. I think we will get the best of Brady, and the criticism I've levied, because I've not listened to him, to be frank. I listened to the NFC Championship game, the game with in the divisional round in Detroit, and some other games, and refreshed with some highlights before we did this podcast, is for a guy who claimed after the 5th Super Bowl, I finally have all the answers. Okay. I know the answers to the test. Well, share them. Tell us, like the alignment and the leverage, the tiny little things that separated you, in addition to the mental fortitude that you recognize and diagnose in defenses. Cut it loose. That's the stuff we want. Not just the nerds, but people who are going to be tuning in for their only game of the season to know this is how granular this game gets. That's why so many of us love it. Share that with us. And I think he will. We'll take some time, whether he's a little too low or too high, but he'll find it right. I think maybe even just second quarter.
His voice might crack a few times early. It gets a little squeaky. But I've noticed as the season has gone on that he does say those things almost matter of factly now, where he'll make a quick line on the telestrator and say, his tight end's doing this is what they're going to do, and inevitably it's correct. Inevitably it's what happens, and I think he's recognized that, not overdoing it with that sort of thing, but cluing you in exactly on what he sees before it happens is it's a way to get even more credibility.
Now, Chad, would you be willing to wager on the voice cracking? Because this leads us into the most anticipated segment of this podcast in a long time, the Tom Brady broadcasting drinking game, which is I laid out in our shared rundown, and I will do now for the folks. You and I have both brought 3 things. I have a 4th as backup just in case there's overlap. If you are listening and watching the Super Bowl, specifically when Tom Brady speaks, we are going to give you these things and assign them a number of sips if you would like to play at home. This is not to encourage anyone to pass out or miss any of the kind of games. Obviously, drink responsibly. But if you want to have a little bit of fun, as someone who studied and listened to him, and I've caught up, I have certain habits. It's not to make fun of Tom. It's just to say we're all doing stupid little games around the Super Bowl. Here's another one. So did his voice cracking make your list? I'd like to start with whatever item you started, just the 1 sip, the most common thing you think we'll hear this. Toss a little back.
The most common thing. I did not include the voice cracking, but I think that is a safe bet, especially early as he gets amped up. His voice has become better over the course of the season. He's probably taking voice lessons or something. One sip is the one we see most common.
Yes.
Okay.
Look, I don't know how you like to party, Chad. If you want to do 3 and just get the people raring to go, maybe you do. Like you're in Maine. The higher north you go, the better drinkers there are. This is true of anywhere place you've ever traveled or ever been, and you're farther north than I am. So you pick. Those are just we have 1 for 3 sips, 2 sips, 1 sip. Assign whatever frequency you want to these comments and what you think will happen.
All right, we'll do 1 sip for this one, but it's something we may either hear a bunch or we won't hear it at all because he's been corrected on it. He called players studs last week at least 5 times. I lost count, but it was 5 different players were studs in that game. I'm really curious to see if he talks about any studs this week, because I feel like it's something that maybe his producer said overuse that word a little bit, and so Tom just throws it out of his lexicon completely.
All right, so 3 sips for stud?
Yeah, 3 sips for stud.
Okay, I've already said this phrase. I think it slips in either after a big play or right before they get from the pregame broadcast to the game. Let's go. The man is no more associated with that phrase than any other that we've come to know. Maybe any person in phrase. I take that back. Caesar and crossing the Rubicon would probably want something about that. But he's not here to argue. Tom Brady, if he says let's go at home, 3 sips, just as if he says stud, I think that will slip in either in a moment of excitement or just to sign off because, look, he loves throwing touchdown passes and winning Super Bowls. The man loves to say, let's go.
Yeah, that would have been one of mine too. That they're trying to, last game of the season, obviously with this little microphone thing, closing out the audio on that with let's go. They're trying to make it more of a Brady catchphrase than ever. This one's broad. I'll say 2 sips on this one, but it's a broad thing, not a very specific Brady tick. But it's when he's doing the breakdown of a play and they're showing a replay and he's not giving you specifics. He's just doing play by play. So,
chat.
Barkley runs in from 4 yards out. They show the replay. Here's Hurts handing off to Barkley, runs left behind the left tackle and in the end zone. Let's go.
Then that's 5 sips. It's right there.
Yeah, right. Doubling up. But he falls into that habit, not every time, but sometimes, where he just tells you what your eyes are seeing rather than, like the left tackle blowing up defensive tackle who's, trying to make the play or something like that. He tells you what Kevin Burkhardt told you 10 seconds before.
Yeah, this is as I was watching the TNT version of the Celtics-Cavs game on Tuesday, Grant Hill special. Oh, just splits the defense here, gets in for a layup, and the ball goes off the backboard, falls through the net. 2 points for the Celtics. Yeah. On top of that, it's a crutch. It is funny to hear that because the sound makes you think they believe they're explaining something profound as opposed to just parroting. But it does happen often enough. I might send you the hospital bill if I play by those rules because I do think that will happen a lot. So this is now like light beer, maybe to NA to get a certain type of buzz. I'm going to give you one word for my 2-sip choice because he said this 9 times in one quarter of the NFC Championship game. Juice. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of juice for the players. A lot of juice in this game. Need a little bit more juice here to get this drive going. There's going to be plenty of juice, as there always is, in and around New Orleans, okay? I don't think this game is going to lack for juice. But Tom Brady is going to make sure that you do not lack for juice at home with the way he uses that word. I think probably, like you said, the producers probably say, hey, can we back off the stud, the juice? Like just, find a synonym. Okay, the thesaurus is your friend, as it was mine, as it is any media person. But it's going to be a couple times. So anytime you hear juice, that's 2.
Yeah, that's a good one. Juice. That makes me think he's going to have a whole new word here that he overuses that we haven't even heard yet. My other one, I guess this is my 1-sip one, but I'd say we see it 4 times anyway, maybe more than that, is when they show those 2 guys in the booth at the start of the game, start of second half, various other points in the game, and Brady is staring at the camera like an alien who's about to dissect you. That is freaky. And we're going to see that. He just doesn't, he doesn't look casual when he's on camera yet. And, he's Tom Brady. So he's a pretty familiar face, and yet he's kind of aging a little bit weird. So I think that one's going to be disconcerting for people when Tom Brady's staring into their soul from their television set.
It just doesn't know where to put that, stare anywhere. Because on the field, that's at the opponent. It's at your teammates. Like, they know what's going on. Here at home, you're just like, hello? Like, if you said an alien about to dissect you, take you to a different planet. It's just a great intensity with those eyes, which reminds me, I don't break my mother's heart very often, Chad. But the last time I did was when I informed her that her beloved Tom Brady, who she waves at from home sometimes when she sees him on the TV, did even when I was rooting for the team myself, since covered the team, that he probably did have some plastic surgery that would explain how the man ages better than any other person on planet Earth. No, Tom would never. There's a clip. It was like 3 years ago. You remember every single headshot from the media guy?
Yes.
Like, Mom, how do we go from here in 2002 with the hair part and this and that to the most handsome man on the planet now 10 years running? It's not by accident. No. Okay. So I don't know. I'll keep you posted on that, as well as everyone who's obviously very entertained. My 1-sip, and I think people will enjoy this one because we did it 20 times already. Any mention of Patriots Super Bowls. Okay.
All right.
1-sip. Put it right down. This could be Tom Brady playing. It could be Belichick. It could be a memory. It could be a call. It could be Mike Vrabel. If it's Mike Vrabel, actually, that's a 5. Okay. But just get any mention of a Patriots Super Bowl in this podcast and Brady reminiscing. That's 1-sip for me.
What if he calls him Vrabes?
Oh, that see, I don't know how he would come up unless they showed the clips of Vrabel catching a touchdown pass, which you want to know sign of the times. The Patriots tweeted today and said Vrabel anytime touchdown was cash, automatic money. This is the official team account suggesting betting in the head coach and touchdowns.
No, man.
Anyway, if he does call him Braves, we can do 10. But I think this is going to happen a lot, and deservedly so. The man played in 10, 11 Super Bowls. it's just one sip. Any Patriots mention Brady back in the day, et cetera, that's the one. So there we go. We got our Brady drinking game. How many drinks do you think this is going to? We'll put in beers. Do you think people are going to down as a result of this very dangerous game?
Yeah,
I think
it's a very dangerous game.
3. Yeah.
You know what will put them over the top is if they take a sip for every time he calls Kevin Burkhardt KB.
Oh my!
That puts you in the emergency room.
Yes, it does. All right, well, drink responsibly. Enjoy the Super Bowl. This has been a lot of fun, Chad. I think the comments will be better than when I had just started this podcast 3 years ago, and you were very gracious to spend part of your time. Anything we should look for from you in the next coming days and weeks?
No, writing about Brady on Sunday. That's my assignment, and some Celtic stuff later in this week. But yeah, it's all Super Bowl around here for the most part. Awesome. Any books? I hear you had one or two that might be out. I'm using it as a computer stand right now. Boston Globe Story of the Celtics, available in all fine bookstores. We had a Red Sox one a couple years ago too. Also buy that. All right, very good. All right, here's Chad Finn of the Boston Globe. Read him wherever you can, and sometimes watch him on Nesson, where they've got a show going on with all the Boston Globe folks and our friend Chris Gasper. Thank you, sir.